I truly believe that there are many haunted places throughout Columbus and the central Ohio area. Now, I know there are people who don't believe in ghosts, spirits, hauntings, all things like that. And for years, I myself was definitely a skeptic until I personally experienced some things. But more on that another time. With all of the haunted places here in the city and surrounding areas, there is one road in particular that hasn't only been called one of the most haunted in Columbus, but one of the most haunted roads in the country. This is the story of Walhalla Road and particularly the Mooney Mansion. What's up, good people, and welcome to another episode of True Crime with DannieBSpeaks. I hope you all are doing well. I'm doing good, can't complain. But I decided that if I was going to come back, let's come back with our annual October Haunted Columbus series. The goal each year is to do an episode of this series every week in October, but that has not quite worked out in my favor at all. All I can do is move forward and hope for the best. I hope that I can finally get it together and stay consistent. One day I will, I promise. But anyway, this show isn't about that, so let's proceed. Now, I'm sure many of you in Columbus, or maybe even outside of Columbus, especially if you attended The Ohio State University, have heard of Walhalla Road, or the Walhalla Bridge. And you may have only heard of it for its past and present as a legendary haunted area. Just looking from the street view, regardless if you are on the Clinton Heights Avenue side or the Indianola side, or I should say Indianola Avenue side, it already looks a little spooky, let's keep it real. Because of this, it is known for its unique geographic location. The road seems a little out of place when you think about it. It's located in North Columbus on the North Campus side of the Ohio State University. So it's an urban area, but you have this holler that you just can go down in, and it's just another road. So that is why I mentioned that Ohio State students who aren't from Columbus, I'm sure have heard of it. Or if you like exploring haunted things, if you're that type of enthusiast and you're from another city, maybe you've heard of it. Maybe you've come here and experienced it yourself. And yes, people do live on the road. Present. There are people who actually live on Walhalla Road, so it's a real road. But what is really going on down there? For years, there have been many weird things that have happened on this one particular road. I myself have written on my blog, DannieBSpeaks.com, so go check it out. But there's a story that I did a few years back about the Glen Echo Ravine and Walhalla Road, which will be referenced in the show notes. But one story seems to have really sparked and possibly confirmed the strange things that have happened and are currently happening on Walhalla Road. So let's take a trip down there. We are turning right onto Walhalla Road from Indianola Avenue. Immediately, you feel that you are miles away from civilization in this little hilly holler. It turns into a one-way road. One way in, one way out. During the day, it seems fairly normal. Maybe a little creepy, but fairly normal. You will see other people walking around, riding bikes, walking their dogs, all of that fun stuff. However, at night, it becomes a totally different story. That's when the fun begins. People who have walked around Walhalla Road have said that even in the dead of summer, it turns ice cold when you're walking around down there. That their breath becomes a little labored. It's dark except for one blue light. You are surrounded by trees. Then you look up and you see a bridge. Some nights you may even see someone on that bridge, possibly dressed in 1950s style clothing, standing on that bridge looking over at you. Then you play back in your head the story of Dr. Mooney and his family. So, what exactly happened to the Mooney family? Well, there are many versions of what happened on this one particular night in 1950s. Mind you, no exact date has ever been given. Now, the premise of the story is Dr. Mooney comes home from a long day of work, and sometime during the night, he just snaps, killing his wife and children with an axe in the attic of their mansion. Now, once he realizes what he has done, he frantically tries to clean up and hide the body parts before friends and neighbors become suspicious. Not long after the murders, his secret is revealed, though, and Dr. Mooney was arrested, tried, and convicted for the murders of his family members. Shortly after his execution, that is when people started seeing a dark figure of a man pacing back and forth in the mansion's attic where the murders took place. But that was impossible because the mansion had been abandoned for years. The neighbors truly believed that Dr. Mooney had come back to haunt not only his old home, but the entire neighborhood as well. But wait, there's more. There's another variation of this story. This one adds a bloody statue to the story. So Dr. Mooney gives his wife a ceramic statue in her likeness for their garden. After the murders, the statue was not removed from the home with their other belongings. Instead, the statue stayed in the garden. So all of a sudden, bloody markings began to appear on this statue. These bloody marks were the exact same place that Dr. Mooney caused the deadly wounds to his wife. But not so fast, y'all. There's another variation to this story. So not only did Dr. Mooney kill his wife and children, but he also killed his wife's dog as well. So as a result of the dog's gruesome murder, a ghost of the dog is said to continue to haunt the property to this day. Okay, maybe there's one more variation of this story. Are you keeping count? So this makes 4. And y'all, that's just what's documented. Now, this version is actually the most popular one of them all. So after killing his wife and children, no mention of the dog in this version, he heads down to the bridge and hangs himself from one of the beams. Is this who the people have seen hanging around the bridge or from the bridge, as some people have said they have seen at night? Some people have also claimed just to see a noose hanging from the bridge just appear out of nowhere. So the question is, did this even really happen? Is it a true story? Was this a little too outrageous? 4 different versions, and like I said, that's just what is documented. Now, with different versions of the story, it does make it a little suspect, but let's take a look at it from another perspective. So if nothing like that ever happened, if no murder took place in this mansion or on Walhalla Road at all, then what explains all of the weird happenings down there? Well, let me say this. Some people have come forward and said that this did happen. A murder did take place with the Mooney family, but it wasn't this Dr. Mooney. So years later, in recent time, people did find a Dr. Mooney who had lived around the area, but he was a medical doctor that actually died of pneumonia at age 74. And he left behind a wife and children. So, yeah, was that really him? And he got away with it? I don't know. Another thing that I found weird is that it took me forever to find his first name. It just kept saying and referring to him as Dr. Mooney. So this particular Dr. Mooney who committed these murders, his first name was James. Now, some stories say that he was a professor at Ohio State. Some refer to him as a medical doctor, while others didn't mention the type of doctor that he was at all. Now, I mentioned earlier about the date. I have never seen an exact date or even a roundabout date that all of this supposedly occurred. Not even a specific year. It just says the 1950s. So, if something this gruesome happened in 1950, I mean, it's a while ago, but it's really not that long ago when you think about people who are still living, who were born and living during that time. No one knows an exact date that this happened, or at least from the information all that I found online, there is no specific date. It just says the 1950s. So all I know is that the story has given so much attention and lore to this one road. And yeah, it is fun to tell these stories over and over again. I mean, see how they change? I mean, it's just a game of telephone. Things get added to it, taken away from the story, what people have claimed to see, hear, feel. Now, there have been quite a few documented encounters that people have had in this area and by the Mooney Mansion. So, one story actually involves two young boys around the ages of 11 and 12, and they decide to go down on Walhalla Road and investigate the mansion at night. They're trying to see if they can catch a glimpse of a little something. They hear something rolling down a hill, and oh, yeah, did I mention that people have said to see a head rolling down the hill from the mansion at night? I mean, yeah, but anyway, once the boys hear this, they take off running as fast as they can until they feel it is safe to stop. One of the boys turns around and doesn't see his friend anywhere in sight. To this day, that young man has not been seen or heard from again. And another person reported a weird experience in 1987 on Walhalla Road. Now, they just got off work one morning around 5 a.m. They had to walk to Indianola Avenue to catch a bus. They were walking on Walhalla and heard something moving in the brush. So they stopped, and it stopped. They started walking again, and they heard whatever it was moving again. So the person drew a knife, I know that's right, and issued a challenge to whatever was in those bushes. But no one or nothing ever answered. So whatever it was, it kept the pace up with this person all the way to Indianola, to where they got off to catch their bus. They said that they never, ever walked alone on Walhalla Road in the dark again. So what do you all think? Now, I guess with so many variations, no actual documentation, or I should say documented information about the true essence of the murders, anything about the family, not even a date to research. And they kept records in 1950. If they got records from stuff that happened in the 1800s, they would have this on file. So I think I'm going to chalk it up to a good old ghost story. It's a good one. It's just something that, has gone down in Columbus, Ohio history. Now, I'm not saying the area isn't haunted, but I'm just not sure that this is a reason for it. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Haunted Columbus on True Crime with DannieBSpeaks. Be sure to check out my other podcasts, my solo podcast, I should say, because I have two other ones. DannieBSpeaks, the podcast, which has a brand new episode that was released last week. I will be working on another episode to release next week. I think I'm going to do True Crime one week and DannieBSpeaks the following week. But every week, unless we happen to take the week off because something happens, because it is a collaborated podcast, so you have two people who are trying to work their schedules together. But my other podcast that I co-host with my friend Keisha, hopefully you all have checked it out. It's called Girl You Know What. Like I said, that's a weekly podcast, and it comes out every Tuesday. Just always think, all y'all old school people, album release Tuesday. Just always think about that day. That's when Girl You Know What podcast will come out. I will be working on a specific day of the week to release my other podcast, but for right now, let me just get back in the swing of things, y'all. So be sure to follow Keisha at Wellness and Women, and you can follow the Girl You Know What podcast on Instagram at girl_you know what. You can listen to all three podcasts on my website, DannieBSpeaks.com, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, and my YouTube page, DannieBSpeaks. Also on my YouTube page, you can enjoy nostalgic videos, reviews, music mashups, and other original content that will be coming. So be sure to subscribe to my YouTube page at DannieBSpeaks and get into that. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at DannieBSpeaks. If you have Apple Music, and you want to listen to some good old playlists, follow me on Apple Music, where I share playlists that I have created myself. On there, I am Tahir Ali, so check me out on Apple Music. If you need to reach out to me for any business inquiries, such as promoting your business, products, anything like that, on my podcast, on my website, social media platforms, YouTube page, if you want to discuss just collaborating with me, being on the show, whatever, sponsor me, all that good stuff, hit me up at DannieBSpeaks@gmail.com. As always, I do truly appreciate you all. Be sure to continue to support or start supporting the Danny B Speaks brand. You know, that would be so greatly appreciated. I am truly appreciative. So until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Be safe out there, and I will catch you all on the next one. Peace, y'all.